Good morning and welcome to our first fully streaming Sunday service at First Unitarian Church. My name is George Grimm Howell. My pronouns are he, him, his. We're thankful that you're embarking with us on this technological journey this morning. Just a few points of orientation. The order of service, including music notes and the yellow page of the church news, are available on the church website. Look for the link in Friday's e-newsletter. Also, we will have the hymns in the service, and so one of the participants, or all of us actually here, will sing, and we have included the lyrics in the order of service so that you all can sing along from home. And we'll be listening, and we'll know if you have been singing. Religious education is happening today as well. Ben Rosenzweig will offer an online interactive children's chapel using Zoom. That will take place at 12 p.m. Central Time to both give you a break from screen time and to make sure that you've downloaded and installed the Zoom software. So look for the links to download that software in the e-news as well. We hope the whole family will join us at 12. There are many activities that take place at First Unitarian. In an effort to flatten the curve of transmission of the coronavirus, all in-person events for the next week have been postponed. Please watch for e-news updates or check the church website for information on what events have been moved online. This is an evolving situation, and we appreciate your flexibility, your patience, and your adaptability. In this time of worry and uncertainty, it is more important than ever that we maintain our connections with each other. We are also offering a few specific online events this week to help us keep in touch, including a lunchtime chat and Zoom orientation on Tuesday with Reverend Kim and a midweek online worship service on Thursday. Check your e-news for the details. And lastly, we each will be affected by this outbreak in different ways. Some of us are worried about job stability. Others may find themselves exposed or even ill. We may have family members who contract the virus. We may be separated from loved ones. As we grapple with the impacts of the coronavirus, please don't hesitate to reach out to Reverend Kim, our Care and Concerns team, and your church friends for support. We may not be together in person. However, these are exactly the moments that the church was made for, providing comfort, care, connection, and meaning in times of crisis. Together, we are First Unitarian. Welcome, and we are glad that you are a part of our community this morning. We have a team of worship leaders today, as you can see behind me, and that's composed of 3 longtime members of this church. Sue Herzberg, chair of the RE committee, Steve Smidowicz, chair of the finance committee, and Norma Vogelweid, recent past chair of the worship committee. Sue, Steve, and Norma will reflect on the March worship theme of balance. Our religious community affirms the dignity and freedom of all who enter. Here we seek to live together in relationship and respect so that we may celebrate our differences. Our religious values invite us to a shared journey of truth and meaning. These values call us into deeper association with ourselves and our world. So welcome. We are glad that you are a part of our community this morning. I now invite Claire Burge to come forward to offer an affirmation, which is our tradition each Sunday in March as we come together in our annual season of giving. Claire is a lifelong member of this church and currently chair of our Life-Giving Care and Concerns Committee. No, we'll do the affirmation first.
Good morning and welcome to our service. In past years, when I've been asked to, do, share, pronounce, compose, reveal an affirmation, I declined because I didn't feel I had much that was unique to say. Now it seems that I have reached the senior stage of membership in this church. I was 82 years old yesterday. I am a 35-year member. That makes me a bit of a rare bird. I have an increasingly rare point of view to share, so I'll offer it up. The year of 1984-85 was a notable year in my life. I came to the decision to leave my career of 25 years as a biochemist in research at WashU Med School for reasons that aren't yet entirely clear to me, but there were several. One that recurred often in my thoughts was that I had spent long enough in a white coat in an ivory tower, and I thought I'd like to learn more about the world at large. My science colleagues invariably looked at me with horror and warning when they heard this. But I did resign, and I went through, as they say, a process of discernment. I entered social work school, getting a degree in that field, to be followed by a certification in family therapy. There were many changes in the ways I was expected to think and act in my new field, most of which I welcomed. Suddenly, there were lots of women in my life, not a preponderance of men. The near and distant troubles of the world became daily concerns and targets of my study and work. And they weren't in test tubes. About the same time, my 13-year-old daughter said to me that I must visit a church which her friend had taken her to, that I would really like it. You'll recognize a reversal of the usual move by parents to bring their children to church so they can learn about religions of the world, ethical thinking, recognize figures in Renaissance paintings, Baroque oratorios, etc. At that time, we were pretty much unchurched, my youth's Presbyterian beliefs having no pull on me. So I happened into the Thanksgiving service in 1984, led by Earl Holt, and was struck by its honesty, the poetry of his words, respect for the various historical threads woven into the story, and the broad view of human interaction that I heard offered. On top of that, I, a displaced Georgia girl, was offered two things I'd left behind long before: cornbread and a communion. Only one of these had I ever really missed, but I found the combination compelling. In addition, there was a choir making really good music. So I joined the choir and came to stay, as did my husband Stan. For my son, the habit never really took. My daughter stayed on. So I felt quite a turnaround in my life in 1984 that deeply involved this church. I felt the need to find a community that I could support and that would support me as I went in new directions. Other things I had not immediately noticed became of value to me here. I was struck by the force, talents, grace, and dignity of the older generation of folks who were active at that time. I watched and tried to learn from Marietta, Vera, Jane, Dorothy, Lorraine, Rennie, Ola, Jim, Ira, Gino, Alex, SJ, Whit, Mike, among many. I didn't always agree with their points of view, but they were devoted, had integrity, used their voices in the right places for influence, and were prepared to sacrifice for the church. I tried to learn from that. Strength and coherence began to wane as they left us. Sadly, just as pastoral strength and coherence also began to be less constant. This congregation has had a hard time in the last 20 years knowing who and what we are. As one of those who's weathered these years, I do admit it hasn't been through unquestioned loyalty. I've had many questions about our direction in the last 2 decades. Considered whether I might have had enough of the unsettled state of First UU, as it seemed to be reacting more to parking lot conversations than to board and staff decisions informed by straightforward congregant input. Thank goodness I have stuck around and can happily say that I think we're becoming a caring congregation again, with leaders increasing in confidence to hear and honor the wishes of our people, and people who have increasing confidence that there are receptive ears for creative, thoughtful input. When that becomes true, we can care for ourselves, that is, for each other. Then we can care for those many others out there who need us. That, after all, is the reason this church was formed and that I joined it to continue the beloved community. Thank you.
We'll now enjoy Bach's Prelude in C major from our organist, Earl Naylor.
Hello, I'm Susan Herzberg. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Our opening words this morning are by Annie Dillard. We are here to abet creation and to witness to it, to notice each other's beautiful face and complex nature, so that creation need not play to an empty house. Please lift up your voice wherever you are and join in our opening hymn. May nothing evil cross this door. The words are in your order of service.
We now invite Claire Birch to light our chalice. A chalice lit in our midst is a symbol of our liberal faith, a faith built on the foundations of freedom, reason, and welcome, a faith sustained by acts of kindness and justice, a faith that envisions a world flourishing with equality for all people, a faith that demands the living out of goodness, a faith that requires thoughtfulness, a faith of wholeness. This tiny flame is the symbol of the spark of all this within each of us.
Hello, my name is Ben Rosenzweig. I'm the Director of Religious Education here. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. And today I'd like to tell you a story that comes directly from the book Courage to Soar, A Body in Motion, A Life in Balance by Simone Biles. Now, Simone Biles is the most decorated American gymnast. This is a story about her experience preparing for and during the Rio Olympic Games back in 2016. I kept messing up on bars. I was over-rotating my handstands, my catch and release moves were shaky, and the timing was off my whole routine. In 2 days, I would join the other 4 members of the U.S. Women's Olympic team to prepare for the 2016 Rio Games. But at that moment, I didn't look anything like an Olympic hopeful. Hard to believe that only 1 week before, I placed first at trials in San Jose, California. That night, I was added to the Rio Olympic team alongside other world and Olympic gymnasts. I'd been so proud of all of us in San Jose that night. As confetti rained down on us and fog machines swirled clouds of vapor around us, we'd hugged each other, sobbing and laughing. I felt as though I was on top of the world. And now I was melting down. Back in the gym, my whole bar rotation was going wrong. I wanted to succeed in Rio, yet there I was having visions of crashing into the mat in front of the entire world. What a disappointment I'd turn out to be. My coach, Amy, saw me flinging myself around the bar, and just by looking at my movements, she could tell I was frustrated. She walked over to me. "Go home, Simone," she said. "That's enough for today. See you tomorrow." I didn't argue. I just grabbed my grip bag, pulled on my black track pants, and strode out of the gym to the car. I sniffled the whole way back home, fighting back feelings of failure. Once inside my room, I threw myself across the bed and really let myself bawl. My chest heaved, and I could barely catch my breath. I felt as though I was having a full-blown panic attack. My dad came to see what all the commotion was about. "Everything okay in here?" my dad asked from the doorway of my room. When I didn't answer, he walked over, put his hand on my shoulder, and said, "This will pass. It always does." I buried my face in my pillow, seriously doubting the pressure that this feeling would ever go away. My breath came in short gasps as I tried to control the crying. "Do you want me to call Mr. Andrews?" Dad asked. I nodded, without saying a word, grateful to my father for knowing just what I needed in that moment. A few minutes later, Dad brought the house phone to me. My sports psychologist was on the other end of the line. Now, hearing Mr. Andrews' steady voice coming through the phone, I broke down again. "Go ahead and cry," he said gently. "You probably need a good cry right now." And then he just waited, listening to me sob. A little while later, when I had finally cried myself out, he asked, "So what's worrying you, Simone?" My big fear came tumbling out. "I don't think I'm going to be ready." I told him, "Everybody has all these huge expectations of me, and I'm afraid that I won't be able to meet them." "Well, you can't really worry about other people's expectations," he said. "You don't usually do that, so don't start worrying about that now. All you can truly control is committing yourself to practices and doing your best out there." We talked a little bit more about that, and then I thanked him. "I know how hard I've worked on this," I told him. "I think I'll be fine now." When I put down the phone, I really did believe that. "Okay, Simone, just do what you know how to do." That's what I kept telling myself. "Okay, Simone, just do what you know how to do." Before departing for Brazil, my family came to see me at the gym in which we had all been practicing. My mom has always believed in setting clear goals. And when she, my dad, and my sister Adria arrived, she took me aside to discuss the fact that I still hadn't written down any goals for my time in Rio. "You said you wanted to make the team," she pointed out. "But now that you've made it, you need to set a new goal for what comes next. You need to write it down and be very purposeful about it." "Mom," I protested, "not now. I don't want to think about that yet." "But the Olympics are almost here," she said. "If you don't think about it now, when will you have time? You have to get clear on what you want to accomplish in Rio before you get there." I put my arms around my mom, rested my forehead against hers, and groaned. "Just promise me this," my mom finally said. "Promise me that you'll do your best. This is your dream, Simone. So go out there and live it with everything you've got. and don't forget to have fun. After my family left that evening, I couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said about living my dream. Finally, on the day before our scheduled flight to Rio, I sat down in my room, opened a notebook, and wrote my parents a short letter. Fast forward to Rio, I got first on the first event, dropped to a second on the second event, which disappointed me, but I shook it off. After the third event, I was back in the lead. Now, only one event left. What if I tripped going into a leap or something silly like that? What if I took off with too much power and stepped out of bounds? All of this was going through my head as I walked onto the floor. I was the last gymnast to perform. As my samba music filled the arena, the crowd began to clap in time with the beat. Energized, I flipped and somersaulted, taking in the whole thrilling 360-degree view of the arena from high in the air. As I came down on the mat on my final tumbling pass, I think I was the happiest athlete in Rio. And when my score appeared, it was the highest of the competition, 15.933. I had done it. Gold. I knew that somewhere up high in the stands, my parents and my sister were sharing this moment with me. As incredible as my Olympic journey had been, my greatest gift had been the chance to bring joy to those who love me most, my family. More than all of the gold medals of the world, I wanted to make them proud. After all, it was my mom and dad who'd first given me the courage to soar, to dream such a big dream, and to soar higher than I'd ever imagined I could. They'd known all along I had had wings. They'd just been waiting for me to spread them.
Spirit of community in which we share and find strength and common purpose, we turn our minds and hearts toward one another, seeking to bring into our circle of concern all who need our love and support. Those who are ill, those who are in pain, either in body or in spirit, those who are lonely, and those who have been wronged. We hold our community with love and care as we deal with the ripple effect of the coronavirus and share their hope for a quick and healthy outcome. Today, as we realize more than ever before how truly connected we are to one another, I invite you to join with me in reflecting on the words of this prayer by UU Minister Ann Mason. It is titled, "The Circle of Connection in Our Lives." Spirit of life, your very presence among us is what gives us connection. Help us to sense that beneath our feet is the strength we need to keep us grounded. Help us to feel that behind our back is the protection we need to feel safe facing our fears. Help us to know that before our eyes lies the beauty we seek to feel astounded. Help us to lift our heads high enough to be aware of the vastness of our sky and of our spirit, and help us to know that within our hearts lies the love we need to complete the circle of connection in our lives. We are grateful, Spirit of love, for this day. May we use all of these gifts, our feet, our backs, our eyes, our heads, and our hearts, to bring love into this hurting world, this world which we so value, which we cherish. Amen. Please lift up your voices in our sung response, Spirit of Life. Our reading this morning is by Ellen Bernstein, founder of Shomrei Adamah, which translates as Keepers of the Earth. Shomrei Adamah is the first institution dedicated to cultivating the ecological thinking and practices integral to Jewish life. She writes here the importance of balance enshrined in Torah, which is the body of wisdom and law in the Jewish tradition. Judaism ensures the proper balance between enjoying and exploring the world by establishing a system of boundaries or laws called halakha. Halakha requires that periods of work, of being actively involved with the world, alternate with periods of rest and retreat, the Sabbath. This can help restore balance in people's lives and in the world. Commenting on Genesis 2:15, the Lord God took the man and placed him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to keep it. The sages state about this that to work it refers to the phrase, 6 days you shall work, and to keep it refers to the Sabbath. Work, a transformative process, consumes human and material resources, while keeping preserves the resources. The biblical imperative requires finding a balance between transformation and preservation. This 6-in-1 cycle applies to years as well as weeks. Every 7th year is a year of rest for the land. No cultivation of land takes place, but whatever grows of its own accord may be eaten. The limitations placed on Jewish individuals and society through the laws of the Sabbath and the sabbatical year, as well as the restrictions governing diet and sexual behavior, are intended to help people fathom life's hidden limits, so that rather than being seen as a curse, the limits are considered the starting point from which one constructs a meaningful life. Who is wealthy? Asks the rabbis rhetorically. One who is happy with one's lot. Halakha concerns itself not only with balance in the individual and collective life of the people, it also seeks balance and equity in the distribution and consumption of the fruits of labor. Thus, the biblical obligations of payah, leaving the corner of one's field for the poor at the time of harvest, and ma'aser, giving 1/10 of one's harvest to the landless Levites, are expanded by the rabbis into an obligation to give between 10 and 20% of one's income to the poor. Moreover, halakha specifies that familial and religious celebrations, rather than being occasions for excessive consumption, should be restrained so that they do not create pressure on others in the community who are less well off to spend beyond their means. These affairs should also include the poor. Sharing with the poor in times of celebration is described this way by Sephardic Jewish philosopher Maimonides. Better for one to give many gifts to the poor than to have a sumptuous feast and send many gifts to one's acquaintances. For there is no greater or more elegant joy than to gladden the hearts of the poor, the orphan, the widow, and the stranger in our midst. Here ends the reading.
I'm Norma Vogelweid. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Despite our being a virtual congregation this morning, there is no barrier to each of us contributing financially to today's offering. You can visit the church's website, firstUUSTLewis.org. There you'll find a link on the top right-hand side of the homepage. It is entitled Financial Support for First Unitarian. Either now or sometime during the week, please take a moment to open up a separate window in your browser and locate the link to make a donation. Why do we give? To remind ourselves how many gifts we have to offer. To remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and in sacred space. We give with the faith that together we have enough.
The title of my homily is Balancing Work and Play. I am probably the worst person to talk about balancing work and play, actually, because not too long ago, I started a business with my husband, and we have worked nonstop to create a company that can sustain our family and now supports other people who work for us. I feel so lucky to get the opportunity to do this because I am doing what I love in every aspect. I am outside, I am meeting people, I'm having fun playing in the dirt. That's right, playing. The people I work with all laugh and joke around together as we accomplish our tasks for the day, and we enjoy it. I worked a very long time, shackled by the golden handcuffs of corporate America, in a lucrative job working directly and indirectly for one of the world's largest brewers. I will let you guess who that might be. For a long time, this was fun, because when I was in my 20s, beer was a product I could truly believe in. But as I got older, I found the allure of staying out until 3 a.m. was waning. I questioned what I was doing and why. I hated going on long business trips away from my family. I hated being trapped in a windowless cube day after day, 8 hours every day. Many times more. I constantly questioned my existence. Who am I? Why am I here? I asked over and over. I found satisfaction in working on programs for nonprofits, but that was it. What did I truly want to do? I would sneak out of my office to take sunshine breaks while other people took smoke breaks. I would go for long walks outside at lunch. But all in all, I felt trapped, caged. The only thing I wanted was to get out, find peace. I would fantasize during these times about owning a landscaping company and working outside. I volunteered to plant the medians on Grand with flowers, even though I was 9 months pregnant. This is how much I loved gardening and being outside. After Gretchen was born, I volunteered to help build a green space at her future school so that kids could experience nature. And then when she started kindergarten, I negotiated for time off from that windowless cube so that I could run the garden club at her school. I loved the garden beds that we built and planted together. I loved being outside. Finally, we came to a time in our life of change when my husband was laid off from his job, and it felt at the time like the end of the world. But it also came to be a time of opportunity. And we decided he should start doing landscaping while I continued the corporate job. So I worked on the logo and marketing the company, and amazingly, we started getting work. It felt weird at first doing gardening for other people for money, but it was awesome. And most importantly, it was fun. It was play. Life became more challenging, like a game that we had to win to survive. And we have. Sure, there are times when things are dicey, like a few weeks ago when it was winter and we were waiting for our final project on a big payment and nothing new was coming in. It was a nail biter. But overcoming a challenge is also fun. Successes mean more when they are hard fought and then won. When you have had a privileged life where you have not wanted really for anything, it is good sometimes to say no, we can't afford that right now. Spring will be here soon, and then we can get it. It's good and feels natural to live by the seasons, to save up over the summer and work sun up to sundown, and then rest in the winter. Well, rest other than for good causes, like the auction or the unfish fry, of course. So what I'm saying is, what is your play? Is it making falafel balls and working as part of a close-knit crew and laughing and joking around and becoming closer and better friends in the process? Is it coaching your kids' soccer games? Is it volunteering with underprivileged youth? Is it coming to church? What is it that you love to do? Because whatever it is, take it and grab it by the horns, or maybe by the falafel balls, and do it. Do it until you can't do it anymore, because that is the true balance point. When you finally free yourself from whatever trap you have put yourself in, because you felt you had to for whatever reason, and you give yourself to your true passion. Something that I am passionate about is our church and our new outdoor play space. Every congregation needs to honor children as part of community, and ours is no different. Children love to play, of course, and they especially love to play outside. The 7 Spaces Play Space beautifully reflects the values of the 7 principles of our UU tradition and gives kids an area they can call their own. I would like to thank everyone who is making this their passion as well and helping to make this vision for the future of our church a reality. So, in conclusion, go out, find your passion, and thank you for all being a part of the passion for our play space.
Good morning. As I think about how to expand the spiritual mission of our church, I'd like to share some thoughts about personal finances, social priorities, and the church's financial and social spiritual balance. A recent Pew study shows interesting generational differences in attitudes towards money and social priorities. It seems that since millennials likely have more of a debt burden with slow or no personal economic growth compared to baby boomers and Gen Xers, millennials seem to take 2 divergent paths: focus on long-term savings or live the you only live once type attitude. The baby boom generation, now mostly in retirement, generally relies on monies from investments and or the social safety net. Gen Xers are stuck somewhere in between. Millennials do not trust the financial systems, unlike the baby boomers and Gen Xers, who are comfortable with investing and entrusting institutions with their financial assets. When looking at the priorities of social causes, millennials and baby boomers are more closely aligned compared to Gen Xers, be it concerns about climate change, human rights, environmental sustainability, or community involvement. With this in mind, regardless of your social priorities, knowing how to manage your personal finances and personal priorities impacts your ability to support your social interests. Deciding how to balance your needs versus wants, balancing the burdens of debt versus small allowances to enjoy life, or working to achieve a long-term goal is key. Working to develop personal financial balance enables one to nurture oneself and the world around us. For some of us, as the study shows, this balance is harder than for others and is shaped by the socioeconomic conditions of our upbringing. For all of us, we need to determine what is the proper balance for necessities versus small pleasures, or if there are things that we can cut back on. Once you meet your short-term obligations, are you able to secure some monies for uncertainties in life? Are you able to take care of yourself so that the stresses and strains in life are manageable? Are you able to think of the stresses and strains in life for others? Can you achieve a balance between your needs and the needs of others? Making time to think about your views and priorities and working to balance your financial needs impacts your ability and or willingness to support the social causes important to you, including those of our congregation. When we support our church at some level, we likely look for a spiritual return on investment. Can we, based on the Pew research, consider that spiritual ROI, and can we think about it as if it's the same for all generations? Do we know as a congregation we can agree on 1 or 2 common spiritual goals we all support? Can we balance any generational, societal, or spiritual priorities? Deciding how and when our congregation should focus its efforts is a challenge that needs a cross-general look from within. And once our congregation determines those priorities, how can we achieve that balance within the church? From a church perspective, our leadership has to think about how the same balance of needs versus wants versus going beyond to help others also applies to our congregation. What are our long-term goals compared to our short-term interests? Can we as a congregation go beyond just meeting our needs or to go beyond the stresses and strains of just operating the church? While we pledge to provide funds for the church's immediate obligations, we should be mindful of our long-term needs at the same time. How can we provide for those long-term needs? In retirement planning, one usually determines an income stream that can last for the duration of one's life, possibly beyond for heirs or for the benefit of an institution. Unlike an individual, however, our church has the capability to live on forever, so the balance of near-term need versus long-term capabilities is an ongoing and essential part of the financial decisions that facilitate the mission of our church. As a result, we manage our funds so that we can provide both short-term for the immediate and long-term into perpetuity. Within the church, our goal is to strike a balance between support for people and the supportive programs. While we have generally prioritized on providing for the people, both staff and the minister, we have not recently been in a position to do much with program mission, nor have we really created a true long-term goal of a financial mission. Excuse me. We have an opportunity every year that by ensuring we support our congregation's near-term needs, we position our church to enhance its long-term capabilities, to create the possibility of a long-term financial mission. This in turn can position our congregation to greatly improve the spiritual impact of our works. Over the long term, achieving any fiscal balance takes time. From both the individual and institutional perspectives, with proper planning and directed action, one can create the ability to better serve both short-term needs and long-term goals. As an individual, each of us decides what we will do in our lives on our journey to personal financial balance. Once we achieve that balance, we then need to decide how to advance our social priorities, including those of our church. As a congregation, by striking a similar financial balance, we enable our church to nurture itself and to go beyond just surviving. We create an environment that allows our mission to grow, to support those social and spiritual priorities we, as a congregation, have set forth. Thank you.
"249 pages is the length of this book, entitled Standing at the Edge by Joan Halifax. Halifax is a Zen Buddhist priest, an activist, as well as being very known for her work with the terminally ill. This book's binding bursts with wisdom in how to find the life-giving balance in oppositional forces, empathy and distress, engagement and burnout. Balance is the theme of today's worship service. As a verb, it is to put something in a position in order to stay steady and upright. As a noun, it is an equal distribution for someone or something to be able not to fall. Truth be told, when I read this book over 6 months ago, it was this short paragraph that grabbed me. I'm going to read those 100 words. I'd like you to tune your ears to listen for the word balance. We recognize that really we are always in free fall. It is not like we will find some moral high ground where we are finally stable and then can catch everyone else who is falling around us. It's more like we are all falling above the infinite groundlessness of life. And we learn to become stable in flight and to support others to become free of the fear that arises from feeling unmoored. The final resting place is not the ground at all, but rather the freedom that comes from knowing there will never be ground. And yet, here we are, all together, navigating the boundless space of life, not attached, yet intimate. I didn't hear the word balance. Instead, Halifax slips in words like free fall, infinite groundlessness, feeling unmoored. I know what she means. It's like my stomach feels when I'm in a plane flying in turbulent weather and the plane drops. My stomach is dislocated for an instant. It's like my mind going blank, reading haiku poetry. For example, spring rain, the girl teaching the cat to dance. I'm not too sure what that really means. It's like when I slip into the gaping, bottomless hole in my heart, thinking about my brother and his wife who suffered and died within 4 months of each other last year. It's how my body levitates when a man who has caught my eye suddenly turns around and comes toward me. Free fall. In these situations, balance is a ludicrous notion. Rather, the practice is working on relaxing as I tumble and somersault and whoosh in all directions. Stability in flight comes from over and over staying in the discomfort, embracing all of what it means to be alive, embracing the nature of life, my life. That nature, for me, is always starting over, is always getting sick, is always growing older, always being separated from everything and everybody I hold dear. It is eventually dying. The Buddhist nun Pema Chodron likes to talk about the ravens in Nova Scotia. The ravens, how they love the weather, the wilder it gets. They challenge the wind. They are hardy and fearless, playful and joyous. The elements have strengthened them. Once she says she saw them in a hurricane-force wind, grabbing onto each other's feet, dropping down, suddenly letting go, and flying off. It was like a circus act. I understand the wisdom of balance. I also am aware that my life has unimaginable dimensions, and I want to live them all without struggling against any of them. I want to be like the ravens. I invite you to contemplate the dizzying perspective that perhaps your life is groundless, like mine. I'd like you also to consider what Joan Halifax said at the end of the passage. Yet here we are, together, navigating the boundless space of life, not attached, yet intimate.
Please lift up your voices wherever you are and join us in our closing hymn, Gather the Spirit. Before we have our closing words, please take a few moments to stay with us for coffee hour. Yes, we can have a virtual coffee hour by using the comments function in the YouTube. So please stay and join us for a chat.
May we go forward in purposeful rhythm, that we may give voice to the melody of our imaginations, the music of our souls, and all the possibilities of a just world, as we might together create it. Go in peace.